Welcome to the Lyrically Speaking podcast, where we dissect, dig deep, and discover the lyrics to some of the most popular songs ever written. We ask, what are they really telling us? What can we learn or unlearn in some cases? I'm Louise.
And I'm Omar.
And here on the Lyrically Speaking podcast, we share our thoughts on how the broader themes from these songs relate to our real everyday lives. So if you love music, if you enjoy critical thinking and reflecting on life's bigger themes while having a laugh with friends, then this is the place for you.
Hello, and welcome to another episode.
Hello, everyone.
So this one is going to be, I think, an interesting one. The subject in question came under some fire, I believe it was last year.
Yeah.
Quite controversial behaviours that we did not expect.
And more this year. It's piped up even more this year as well.
Well, you know what? I've not really been following. So you might have to fill us in as we dive into this track. But we're just going to go into some stuff about this song. So I'm going to give some facts about this song. This song was released in 1998. The song was a commercial success, reaching the top 10 in several countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia. And New Zealand. Let's not forget New Zealand. And the song samples the instrumental riff from the song by The Whispers, very popular and catchy song, and the beat goes on. Now, we know that our man who made this particular song loves a good sample. He loves a good sample.
He does actually.
But this one samples and the beat goes on. So we are talking about Miami by none other than our beloved actor, rapper, Will Smith. You just gave it away. So I'm trying to give man accolades.
Sorry, I didn't know you were building.
I'm out here trying to give man accolades, and you're just like, Will Smith, whatevs. Forget he's a rapper. Forget he's an actor.
Yes, he is all of that. Yeah.
Anyway, so he's in a new film now, isn't he? Or newish. They're still doing that franchise, aren't they?
Bad Boys 5.
Bad Boys 4. Is it 5? It's becoming like a Fast and Furious. They're about to go to 10. They're not going to stop. I've not seen anything past, I think, number 2. But they're still going with it. So we're going to get into these lyrics because he loves Miami.
I do remember that song was really big. It was big when it came out.
Very, very big. It was actually the first single my sister owned. I think she was maybe in primary school, but I think my dad bought it for her because we really loved it. My dad bought it for her as it was a cassette tape, I think.
Yes. Was it 90s? It was
90s,
wow.
Yeah, 98 it was released. Yeah, it was a cassette tape, I think, or it could have been a CD. It was one of the two. Now I say CD and my son's like, what's a CD? I've got to explain it to him, and we haven't even got a player. But no, we do. Sorry, we do have a player because...
Do you know I have a CD player and a Walkman?
Girl, you need to keep that Walkman. That is so nostalgic. Isn't it lovely, though? I love it.
I do.
I love it. I don't actually have any cassette tapes, but I know my dad has a load of them. And I just love the nostalgia of it.
I do, yeah.
Really, the black tape, you turn it. Remember you used to turn it with the pencil when it started messing up. Yeah. I love it. There's nothing like it. You'd be playing that Walkman all night and then you turn the tape over, close it again. There's nothing like that feeling. Let me tell you something. These young'uns, these kiddie bups, they don't know. They don't know what we had. They don't know what we had. So this is what Will Smith says anyway. Let's get into this. He says, don't get me wrong, Chi-Town got it going on. We love Chi-Town, And he says, New York is the city that we know don't sleep. That's true. And we all know that LA and Philly stay jiggy. I've not been to either of those. But on the sneak, Miami bringing heat for real. He says Miami brings the heat. So he's saying Miami is up there. Y'all could talk about New York City.
But it's all about Miami.
But you don't know about Miami.
Have you been? Have you been to Miami?
I have, yeah. But I went over 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago. I was a young'un, so I don't know what it's like now. It might even still be the same. I mean, I don't know. But he says, y'all don't understand. I've never seen so many Dominican women with
Ooh.
cinnamon tans.
Okay, so he likes the Dominicans. That is very evident.
He's saying Dominicans with cinnamon tans. Mira.
Mira. Mira.
Mira. Now, I thought Mira was a
That
name.
means
I
look.
was like, oh, he's being very demanding, telling this Mira to come, take a walk with him. But no, I since discovered it means look. But he says, Mira, this is the plan. Take a walk on the beach, draw a heart in the sand. Give me your hand. Damn, you look sexy. That's what he says. Let's go to my yacht in the West Keys.
It's a bit forceful, isn't it?
Very, very forceful. He's like, take a walk on.
Just take a walk on the beach. Give me your hand.
He's Will Smith, right? He's in Miami.
What if she doesn't want to do that? How about, what would you like to do?
Listen, he's Will Smith. He's Will Smith and he's in Miami. She don't get an option.
Yeah, she's no option. You're going to do what I've said.
She don't get an option. And you got to draw that heart, whether you like it or not. You got to draw that heart in the sand. So he says, let's go to my yacht in the West Keys, ride my jet skis, lounging in the palm trees.
Nice wordplay there.
Yeah, and you know what? There was quite a lot of wordplay to this song, to be fair. Will Smith is old school.
Yeah.
But he had quite a lot of wordplay in his rapping. Got to give it to him.
Yeah. I wonder if he wrote it himself. Because, sometimes they have ghostwriters and...
And, I've never wondered. And you know what? Do you know Harry Mack?
Who's that?
Harry Mack is this amazing freestyle rapper.
Okay.
It's a big thing because he's a white guy as well, so that obviously adds the extra thing, but he can freestyle anything. I have to send you a video. He is incredible. He will say, give me 3 words. You tell him bottle, pen,
and he just creates something.
And he can go for, when I say this guy can rap for an hour freestyling straight off the dome, he is incredible, like literally. So I was watching where he did a freestyle for Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Because they were promoting their movie. And I'll be honest with you, Will Smith was he was bigging it up. But when someone's like overcompensating a bit, it was a bit like, because you were a rapper and then it's like, you can't really compare to the talent this guy does. It was all a bit awkward at times. He was kind of overdoing it. He gave man his props, but he was kind of overdoing it. So who knows? Maybe he didn't always write his stuff. I don't know. Because he did look a bit odd.
Because I can tell if he did write it, then it's like his passion and his joy for life came out when he was writing this song. He must really love Miami.
He must really love.
Because there's just a lot going on, a lot of wordplay. It just seems quite like he's in his element when he's writing this song.
This is his own, right? Then he says, because you've got to have cheese for the summer house piece on South Beach. So you got to have the loot. Says water so clear you can see to the bottom. $100,000 cars. Everybody got them. That's what he says. And he says, this is a very random line. I'm still trying to work out. Ain't no surprise in the club to see Sly Stallone. Miami, my second home. So that's what he says.
So basically he's saying that you'll see celebrities around there, like Sylvester Stallone.
I am assuming. Why Sly Stallone, though? I don't know. It's a bit of a random one.
Yeah, it's a bit of a random. Maybe because it rhymes with something. It rhymes with home. Because the next line is Miami, my second home. Home Stallone.
Makes sense, because who else could you choose? There's no one else, so that makes sense. Then the chorus, party in the city where the heat is on. All night on the beach to the break of dawn. Welcome to Miami. Then it says, bienvenidos a Miami. Bouncing in the club where the heat is on. All night on the beach till the break of dawn. I'm going to Miami. And then he says, welcome to Miami. So when you listen to this track, and you mentioned it, Louise, that it sounds so joyful, effervescent.
It does, doesn't it?
Full of the joy of life for this place called Miami. It just makes you think, wow, Miami must really be the place. $100,000 cars. Everybody's got a celebrities. Like, you just gonna be bucking up,
finding love.
I mean, Mirror, they're drawing hearts,
sunshine.
He just makes Miami sound like it's a place with no problems, and you've just got to be there. This is the no problem place. But I must say, and like I say, when I was in Miami, this was a long time ago. So we're talking over 10 years ago. And I went when I was very young. I was there to party. I was there to have fun. And fun we had, right? I just say that fun we had. But it's one of those places to me at the time that after a few days, kind of like a Vegas, like you've done a few days. And I've never been to Vegas, but I've just heard this. After you've done 3, 4 days, there's not much really else going
Right.
on. And when we stayed on South Beach, which is, he mentioned South Beach, you know, in this particular area. So South Beach is kind of the coast of Miami where all the tourists go. It's the tourist place. If you're going to Miami for fun, you're going to stay on South Beach. And then there's next to that downtown Miami. And then you have like all the rest of Miami. But I remember we stayed on South Beach. It was super fun, super lovely. And then we thought, oh, let's try and be cultural and take a trip to downtown Miami.
Oh, no, I've heard it's a bit of a mess.
And it was like coming out of all this sunshine that Wilson was talking about and just arriving. I don't even know how to explain it. It was like night and day. You couldn't compare. And the one thing that stood out to us about downtown Miami was that feeling of, okay, we're no longer safe here. Seeing quite a lot of homeless people and seeing just a lot of things that were very run down. And so you could see from even just at the young age we went, and we didn't care too much because what's our own, right? We don't care. We're there to have fun. But just thinking back and reflecting, it was like all the investment had gone into South Beach, tourists, everything.
This is the problem.
And then the rest of the place was pretty run down. So when you see Will Smith saying all this stuff about Miami and how wonderful it is and encouraging people to go and live a stellar life and have a stellar lifestyle, but knowing that from what I experienced, there's actually another side to it. What's your kind of thoughts on that? This way that sometimes we encourage people to visit places and invest in certain aspects when there are maybe a lot of other challenges going on that kind of go unaddressed.
Well, I think it's the government's fault, isn't it? Either the local government or the state government, because you can't just invest in the areas where all the tourists go, because then they're not seeing the reality of the place that they're going to. And it's almost like, you know, if you've got guests over and your house is a bit dirty.
Exactly.
And you maybe just tidy the living room and that's it.
Put it in the cupboard.
Hide it all in the cupboard. That's what it reminds me of, you know. But I think that this is different because this is obviously people's lives we're talking about. And when we talk about social inequities and income inequality, this is exactly what I think of, where, you know, things like gentrification and things like what we're talking about now, where people are forced to live in a place at a lower standard than those who come as guests and visitors who get to stay in a higher standard, which is what Will Smith is talking about, right? He's able to enjoy the fruits and the great stuff about Miami. But what about the residents themselves? They're not necessarily getting to enjoy that, like you said. And actually, I don't know if you know, but from what I understand, there's been a huge wave of people moving from New York, San Francisco, and some of the northern states of America towards Florida to take advantage of various things like, I think the income state tax is less, the weather and opportunities, because apparently there's like a growing tech hub in Florida. So again, when that happens, does that make the inhabitants suffer because people are coming with their New York money, LA money, and they're able to afford properties that spikes up the cost of the homes there, and it increases the living costs for people who live there. I actually do think people in Florida are experiencing some living cost issues, actually, especially related to, I think it's property insurance and various other things. So I think the least that a state government or a local government can do is to take care of its residents, its people. I think at the bare minimum, that's what should be done. Whilst tourism can bring in money, I think that it has to be tourism with a seatbelt on, where there's precaution taken to ensure that the people that actually live there are not only taken care of, but they're not harmed in any way.
Yeah.
by the influx of tourists that are coming into the place.
And that's the thing, because what you're talking about is very true. That when you have this influx of tourism, it does lead to loads of issues for the people living there. And one of the biggest issues actually is a lack of housing, because a lot of people will be turning the homes they have, or a lot of investment goes into certain areas, so particularly South Beach, $100,000 homes in South Beach. People are investing in those areas, turning those into part-time rentals, turning out even the downtown
Yeah.
Miami area. There's probably so many now, rentals, and we can talk about this a bit closer to home in a minute, but all these holiday rentals and things like that mean that we're not actually helping people who really need homes.
Yeah.
So homelessness, becomes quite a big issue in a lot of these areas. And interestingly enough, Miami has the 19th largest homeless population
Wow.
in America.
Yeah.
It's the 19th. Can you guess what number one is?
Is it LA?
No, number one is actually New York. New
Oh.
York, believe it or not. Yeah.
Where's California?
California's number 4, San
Okay.
Diego, which that makes sense. Sorry, Los Angeles is number 2.
Okay.
Then you have Seattle, Washington. And you look at it though, these are all states that, or cities that are very over touristed. Let's put it that way. I mean, tourism is a massive thing. Los Angeles, New York, Washington, Seattle, San Diego. These are all places that have a massive amount of tourism that's happening. We call it over tourism. So that's really happening in these places. So these celebrities are really kind of pumping this dream. They go to Miami, New York, concrete streets where, dreams are made of. But is that actually the best thing, right? And in the UK recently, there's been a lot of news about a particular city, Barcelona. Similar, we seem to like these kind of these Spanish speaking places, don't we? But Barcelona is apparently the most, I guess, over touristed, you could say, city in the world, actually. More than 12 million people traveled to Barcelona last year, and it is actually Spain's largest city. And so it is attracting so much tourism. And it's to the point, just going through the articles, it's to the point where a lot of local people are saying they can't live there anymore.
Yeah, so sad.
They're moving away. And it's really becoming a major problem. I mean, it's similar as well. There's other places like Venice is another place that has become completely over touristed. So actually, your point about governments is a good one, because the governments are cracking down, and they're cracking down on things like holiday lets. They're trying to push people to explore the rest. So Barcelona is in the Catalan area. They're trying to push people to explore the rest of the Catalan area. They're trying to, encourage people to not just focus on Barcelona in itself. So then my question to you is, you mentioned that governments, have this responsibility, but ultimately when you have governments like the government in Spain, which are now saying, look, guys, Barcelona, we're cracking this down now. No more new hotels. If you want to make it, another rule they're saying, if you want to make a new hotel, it's 1 in, 1 out. So you can only have a new hotel if one shuts down. Wow. So it's, they're keeping the ratios, that they're really coming hard on it, because it's becoming a massive problem for their, economy and just the people living there. So they're cracking down. So then how much of the responsibilities on the government, this is my question, and how much of the responsibilities actually on us as people who like to travel, like to visit other places, want to go elsewhere?
Well, I think it's still all the government, because the government need to put the measures in place to protect the residents of the city or the country or the state, whatever. But then they also need to educate people about traveling abroad and how to do it properly, how to do it well, and the impact that it can have on the local people. Back in the day, people went on holiday in their area, right? In their country.
Yes.
They did a road trip.
Yeah.
They drove to the seaside because, we didn't have the technology and the innovation to fly. So maybe,
and the low cost flights.
Yes, yeah. Maybe making that more accessible. We live in London, and we know that to travel in the UK is sometimes more expensive than going abroad.
Yes.
So maybe making it more accessible to travel in your local region, and to make it affordable or fun, whatever it is, government should invest more into that. I also think the part where maybe it is on us is just going to places so we've got a photo opportunity for social media, because social media has made it worse.
Always
People,
comes back to social media.
honestly,
My favorite
your
thing. My
favorite
favorite
thing.
thing. Social media. It always comes
Yes.
back to that thing.
Yeah, because people will take pictures of a particular place they're in on holiday, okay? And it looks beautiful. And then now everyone wants to go there because they want
Yeah.
the pictures. They don't want to necessarily experience the place.
Yeah.
They're going to go viral or to get a picture that's going to get lots of likes. And I think we've got to travel for more purposeful and intentional reasons,
Yeah.
to learn about cultures. You know, we've got to make that the reason we travel again, to connect with people that are different from us, to experience new cuisines, new foods, and to educate ourselves. It really, to be
Yeah.
honest, traveling is an educational opportunity, or even to give back to that country. You know, maybe there's something we can do while we're there to help that region or to help that country, beyond just using it as a photo opportunity or as a place to drink and have a boozy weekend and trash the place. Because I think that's one of the issues Miami has, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pollution. What do you call it when there's just too much rubbish?
Yeah. Yeah. Pollution.
Yes, yeah.
Pollution. Litter and
Yes,
pollution.
yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of littering,
Environmental. Yeah.
environmental. There's a huge environmental
Mm.
impact on Miami because of the tourists. And I just think, you know what, you're going to another country, respect them, have some respect, learn about them, understand what they value. And there's a lot to be said for that. Traveling to another country and adapting to what that country values. I think that should be expected and should be the bare minimum.
Yeah.
We can't travel and impose our own values and ways of being in some sort of imperialistic way. We've got to respect them. And that's where I think we can come into it and we can question it and say, oh, you know, I'm not just going to go to that country because everyone on social
Yeah.
media is gone. And so I can get a good photo opportunity. What
Yeah.
can I learn from the people? What do I want to bring to them? Some might say, that's a bit much. Can't we just go on holiday to enjoy ourselves? Absolutely. If we're going to go and enjoy ourselves, then let's still respect the local culture, the local customs.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's what I think we can do. And that's where I think the government could do more, is to educate people on this, but also make it accessible, possible, feasible, and enjoyable for people to also stay within their local, you know, context.
Yes, yeah, 100% agree. Now, you brought up some other points here because we can talk about Miami and its party town. Now, the thing is, I suppose in the States, and I'm not from the United States of America, but I do know that, you know, I have cousins there, and I know many people actually don't leave the United States of America.
Yeah.
They stay within. So a lot of people who are from the States will be because it's massive, they will be traveling to different sides of the States. In the UK, like you say, not as much, it seems, although it only seems, because to be honest, there are loads of beautiful places in the UK that maybe our government could do a bit better in terms of publicising. I'd never been to Cornwall until, well, I'd been to Falmouth, one town, but I'd not been to like Newquay or other seaside towns. And when I got there, I was like, this is stunning. It's beautiful. There's actually so much here that is so wonderful. So maybe there could be more, you know, like you say, the government could
make it affordable though.
And make it more affordable. Exactly.
Especially the accommodation.
Exactly. But going back to people going to places and trashing it. So I was reading up about Amsterdam. Amsterdam also has the same issue of over tourism. And one of the things that they do is that if you put stag do, hen party, any of these things on your booking, because you can imagine people want to go to Amsterdam on their stag do and hen do, they will give you a warning. It flashes a warning to say, you need to be aware that if you do anything illegal, you could be fined and they literally make it a thing. And that's for hen do, stag do, stuff like that. But I want to say, and then just to add to where I'm going with this question, one of the issues in regards to Barcelona is that a lot of people actually in Barcelona are not actually speaking Spanish. Like people who work in the establishments are not Spanish people. And a lot of those are, you know, expat students, all of this stuff. One couple were complaining that they went to a restaurant and the lady didn't speak any Spanish. She only spoke English. This is in Barcelona, which is the second largest city in Spain. So that's a massive problem. And you mentioned, Louise, about this kind of imperialistic mindset that where we go, people should just adopt to us and we're not going to adopt to anyone else. Do you think, I'm throwing it out there, do you think it's very much a British thing, that we like to go to places and have English and I'll fry up and this and all that? And how do you think as, let me say, Brits,
Mm.
we can, adapt our mindset to be more accommodating when we're going to other places of other cultures, and become people who embrace new things more.
I think that it's a Western thing. I wouldn't say it's a British thing. I think it's a Western thing
Mm,
to go to another country and expect them to conform to you and your customs and your practices and whatnot. Wherever I travel, I try to learn some words in that language, both
yes.
my husband and I. We're planning on going to Japan this year. He's brushing up on his Japanese, and I want to learn a few words. We're going to go to South Korea as well. So it's just respectful to
Yeah.
travel with intention. So I think that it is a Western mindset because we dominate, right? We dominate the global economy. We dominate the
Yeah.
culture. English is the most spoken language around the world. So
Yeah.
we expect,
Yeah.
wherever we travel, they should speak English. But let's be honest, okay, it is entitled. It's
It is
entitled.
very entitled. Very, very entitled.
And we've got to stop. I think on the flip side though, other countries should also be welcoming. Like I went to
Mm,
France, to Paris once, and I actually was lost. And I did introduce myself in French because
yes.
I wanted to do that and just to say a few French words. And everyone ran away from me. They would not help. They would not assist. And I was very polite. I was very respectful. And like I said, I tried to say it in French, but they would not help. So I do think that you should be welcoming to people that come and visit you because I'm sure,
Mm,
you travel, French people,
yes.
wherever you're
Yeah.
from, I'm
Yeah.
sure you travel and you go abroad and you want people to be welcoming to you when you do travel. But I think it's a mindset that needs to be broken, this entitlement. And it goes back to what I was saying, which is just thinking about why we're traveling. Why are you going somewhere? We've got to break the social media
Yeah. Yeah.
photo challenge where we're trying to get the best picture of an area. There's nothing wrong with that. Do you understand? It's great to capture memories. We've got to travel for more reasons than just that. And remember what the purpose of travel actually was and why we're
Yeah.
going to other
Yeah.
places. And absolutely, some people go abroad just to rest, just to relax. And there's nothing wrong with that either. That's great. But I don't think it's asking too much to not go to ensure you leave any imperialistic or entitlement at home. I mean, it's a shame that you were saying this person went to Barcelona on holiday and everyone was speaking English in the.
No, they're Spanish
Yeah,
people who are from
yeah,
Spain. I think they used to live in Barcelona, but they just went to visit. Just like how you might go to Liverpool or
yes,
Manchester. They said, "Oh, let's go and have a day trip in Barcelona," and the waitress couldn't speak Spanish to
Spanish,
them.
yeah. And that's a shame because I know a lot of people are against nationalism and pro globalization. But at the end of the day, what makes the world beautiful is the variety of cultures. So to go to somewhere in your country and your culture is being watered down, the language isn't spoken, now you can't get your local cuisine. It is sad. And I understand that. I understand being proud of one's culture and wanting to preserve it and to retain
Yeah.
it. And I think if tourism is happening at such a rate that is now becoming extinct. I mean, I wouldn't want to go to Barcelona, for instance, because I speak some Spanish. Oh, I'd want to go and practice my Spanish. I'd want to try the
Yes.
local cuisine. I want to experience their culture, not not the British culture. No
Yeah. So
shade.
not the British culture. What's the
Yeah,
point?
this is the whole point of going abroad. So I understand it is a shame. I don't think just because someone is proud of their culture, loves the language and the food, that they are, a toxic nationalist. I
Yes.
don't think
Exactly.
so.
No.
And so we need to do a good job of trying to preserve the cultures of the countries that we go to as well. So those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think everything you said is so true. And I think the social media aspect is a big one. So, with people like Will Smith, I mean, this is years and years ago when he was singing about Miami. But with, these celebrities, singing about these cities and kind of making it like this place of escapism where everything's wonderful and you're going to have all the best life, probably doesn't help with people wanting to go to places with a strong cultural lens on. So then the other thing that I wanted to talk about, because this has been a thing in recent times, and we're just probably going to touch on this, but this thing where he's talking about the hot mummies and the Dominican women with cinnamon tans. Now, it's a bit stereotypical, and I think we can almost be
Yeah.
desensitized to it because we kind of grew up with this, didn't we, Lou? Like rappers kind of fetishizing the Latinx women and women from the Latinx community. And I was even watching something yesterday and it made me laugh. This is guy Kevin Samuels. I
Oh dear,
think
Kevin.
we've talked about him, but so Kevin Samuels, he's passed away now. For
Yeah.
those who don't know, in a quite provocative way, actually, but he passed away, and he was a red pill, what you call one of these red pill influencers, hyper masculinity, very big on women should be in their place and men should have their place, but also somewhat derogatory about black women, I would say.
Mm.
Not the biggest fan and a supporter, but he was basically saying that, black women's biggest threat is, and he was, it was quite derogatory, but he was like, black women's biggest threat is Marisol and Maria. That's the black women's biggest threat. Because, the Latin women, they understand how to season their food. They know how to cook. They understand sensuality, all of this type of thing. And so when you see Will Smith, he's an African American male, black rapper, and he's talking about, Miami with all this gloss and glimmer. And the thing he talks about and kind of centers a little bit on is the Dominican women with their cinnamon tans. It kind of is feeding into
It
that
is, isn't it?
whole
Yeah.
Latinx women, sexy, oh yeah, all this, all this type of thing that he's kind of going with. So what's your kind of thoughts, in terms of these types of stereotypes? I guess black women, we know that there's stereotypes about us as well, but like these types of stereotypes where, people, and it's a big thing, I think, this in the black community with black men specifically and Latinx women. So what's your kind of thoughts on that, Louise?
Well, you know what? I'm not a Latinx woman. I'd love to hear how they feel about being fetishized and men going to Miami just to find a Dominican woman with a cinnamon tan. I'd love to hear from them directly how that feels, because they
Yeah.
may not mind it, or they might not like it, or they may not even notice it.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think it's always wrong to, just going back to what you said about Kevin Samuels, of course, it's always wrong to pit different races or cultures of different races or groups of women, different demographics of women against each other. Because, there's a universal female experience that you'll find where we all are sort of having, we do similar things, or we think in a similar way, we have similar perspectives or needs or quirks and idiosyncrasies. So most of the time I find we're more similar than not. And where there are differences, there's pros and cons to all those differences. There's pros and cons to how black women might be different. And then there's pros and cons to some of the things that Kevin Samuel says about Latin women. So I just find that, there's more similarities. So I don't really take people like him and comments like that particularly seriously. But I'm sure if I was a Latinx woman living in Miami, I guess I would feel like, well, don't just come to Miami to try and get with someone that looks like me and get with a Latinx woman.
Exactly.
But I probably wouldn't respond to it. There may be some women who want to get with a Will Smith, and they like it. Do you see? So it really depends. But ultimately, no, we shouldn't travel to certain regions just to get with our fetish. And I think this happens a lot in regions like Thailand and Asia.
Yes.
A lot of people travel there just to get with a Thai woman, and
it can be dangerous too.
For the man or the
for the man, for the person going. Because if you're trying to find the fetish, but you don't really know what you're getting, especially with, like I say, this, everyone's online now and all this kind of online dating and stuff. It could be anyone. So, when you kind of trying to go places for your fetish, it can pan out in a way that's not good for you.
Because last year, apparently, there were a number of, I don't think they were African American, but last year there was a number of American men traveling to Colombia to again get with their fetish, their Latinx fetishized women. And it was dangerous for them. I think they were getting their wallets stolen, and
look at that,
they were being held at gunpoint. So it's probably not a good idea. But I think this all circles back to what I was saying before. It's bringing back just a respect for other cultures again, for people who have a different culture, and really understanding that the reason that people do things or are a certain way, it's often rooted and founded in something that's very meaningful. And rather than just, Latinx women down to those who cook dishes you like, and I don't know, whatever you were
Season their
saying, season their
food and
food.
essential.
Understand why they season their food. What seasonings do they
Yes.
use? What role does food play in their culture? Why are they
Yeah.
the way they are? And I think we need to recreate that curiosity, that value for cultures again, and the meaning that's often rooted in them.
Do you think that starts then with school education? Do you think we need a bit more of a cultural lens on our, school education so that people are actually becoming global citizens as opposed to only thinking about where they are? Because I do think, for where things are now, how do you, pummel that into someone that's already grown? I know I always say this, but I do think having a sense of global citizenship and a view of care for other cultures, not just races, because we're quite big on talking about race.
Yes, yeah, we are.
But I think beyond race, culture, even, people always use the term, I'm going to Africa.
Yeah.
Like Africa. But even within Africa, there are a myriad, hundreds, thousands of cultures, dialects that are completely different, opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, Omar, I strongly believe, and I've reflected on this over the years, I personally believe that nationality and the culture of your nationality plays a much bigger role in who you are and in differences between people than race.
Definitely. Than race. Than 100%.
But yet race is what we focus on. But we don't talk about people's, like you were saying, people's culture and nationality, learning about that, respecting it, honoring it when we travel, when we're in the same country we live in.
Exactly. I'm from the United Kingdom. I don't know nothing about Wales. No, I'm trying to break this down here. Like, Welsh people have a whole language.
Yes.
Like, you get the forms and you see that Welsh language is written. You can call up the government and they'll say, if you need an interpreter for Welsh, if you need this, I don't have a clue. Like, do you see what, like, these are not things that, unless you probe into it and decide, I'm going to understand this. Do you remember even on The Crown? And I only know this from The Crown show, I didn't read it. But
yes, I think this is a few seasons ago, yeah.
The Prince of Wales, the current now King Charles, was becoming the Prince of Wales and he learned the language.
Yes.
He went and actually learned it. I feel like these are the types of things that we should be, even we're from the United Kingdom, why don't we get an opportunity to learn Welsh? Why don't they say, come learn Welsh or learn Gaelic or learn, one of these languages that are actually UK languages? What I'm trying to say. So I feel like that global citizenship, that understanding of cultures, different things, it really starts from like within the country, like you say, the government and the schooling system. I think the curriculum must be broader. And the point I'm trying to make is you don't even have to go so far afoot to find the differences. Even within your own country, you can find the differences in culture. You can find them. They're there,
Yeah. And one of the things I want to start doing actually is visiting more of the UK. I want to go to Ireland, actually. It's on my bucket list. And I've worked in Scotland and lived there a bit. Wales I've been to a little bit, but I've never touched Ireland. And I think when you first said, starting the schools, I was like, here we go again, because you're a mum talking about the schools and the children.
Here she comes. Oh, she's talking about is the children.
And the next generation. But actually...
Come like Whitney. The children are the future.
Yes. No, but actually, when you said teaching them to be global citizens, I said, you know what? That wouldn't be bad. Teaching them about the fact they live in, compared to the whole world, a very small part of it, right? And educating them more on different cultures and how to respect different cultures and sharing much more frequently. I think that that's actually not a bad idea. I think for adults now, the problem, I do think it's very much social media, because people aren't traveling now for any meaningful reasons anymore. They're just going for the superficial reason. You know what? Maybe that's a bit harsh. For a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people are going for the superficial reasons to show that they're a jet setter, to show that they're here and they're there and they're everywhere, to post, them in the setting of that country and for their own image and for their own brand. So I think for adults, like I said, we've got to just challenge ourselves. But obviously kids can't do that. So definitely, I think it is worth having something in the curriculum, because I can only see, for instance, your kids, Gen Alpha right now, I can only see them traveling even more, right? And maybe
Exactly.
traveling should be embedded more into the curriculum. I studied Spanish and through to uni. So when I was doing my GCSEs and my A levels, we went on trips to
Yep.
Spain. And again, it was through the lens of study, right? So we're
Yes.
studying the culture. It's not just to have a laugh and to have fun. So I think that helps. If that can actually be part of any kid's curriculum, whether or not they're studying a language, I think that would be helpful. And it doesn't have to be abroad. Like you said, it could be that they just travel to Wales and learn about the differences in the Welsh culture and how to honour and respect that. Or they're going
Yep.
to Ireland or Scotland, whatever it is. I think that does help. I think it does. Because we've got to stop this, trashing beaches, littering beaches,
We have to stop.
going to countries just to fetishize some of the women, making lives miserable for the local inhabitants. It's not right. And I think being able to travel is such a gift. And to abuse that, I'm concerned about the backlash that could happen off the
Yeah.
back of that. I think people will really start to clamp down on tourists being able to
And
come.
it's already starting. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
already
can believe
started in a
that.
lot of places. They're like, we've had enough. You're not going to be able to come here. You can't buy you. Remember, we used to watch that Place in the Sun. They're like, no, you ain't going to have no place in the
You
sun no
can't.
more. Stay where you're staying. You can't be coming for no place in the sun. If you
Yeah.
want to build a place in the sun, then someone's got to close theirs down. That's already started. So all the benefits you're
Yeah.
enjoying as, Brits who want to just go anywhere, they're actually clamping down on this. I think we are going to have to be a bit more mindful,
Yeah.
like you say, about where we're going and why we're doing it. So, Will, we love the fact that you enjoy Miami, and thank you so much for giving us this wonderful upbeat ditty.
But
Go on.
we've got to be careful of glamorizing places because they're also people's homes.
Exactly.
So we've got to educate as well on how to travel well, how to travel respectfully. I know that for me personally, I do tend to go to places in off-peak seasons. I know it's not
Yeah.
always possible because I don't have children, so I can really travel anytime I want. And I also don't like going to places I really want to travel to and it's overcrowded with too many tourists.
It's terrible, isn't
I
it?
went to Malaga last August, and it was the first time I'd ever traveled in August. First time.
Yeah.
And oh my word. First of all, I could barely get
It must
accommodation.
have been swamped. Yeah.
And then it was really hot. Sometimes it's not actually the best time because weather is
Yeah.
quite extreme. And it was jam-packed. It was rammed. So,
Yeah.
I know that not everyone can travel in the off-peak periods, but I think if you don't have kids, just leave August and the Easter break to the parents.
Leave August for the inclusive 5-star
Just
resort people who just try to entertain the children and show them a little bit of something new.
Yeah, just leave it to them. Just leave it to them. And
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
you as a parent, you can only really travel in the half-term periods and the summer break. Whereas, I personally enjoy going in the off-peak periods. I love it.
Yeah. So that's good, Luke, because that takes us on to key takeaways then. So that's a good takeaway there about ways that we can be more mindful in our travel. Any other key takeaways off the back of Will Smith's amazing tune that he's given us, Miami?
I think everything that I've said basically, which is just think about why you're traveling and try and make it be more than just about getting some good Instagram pictures or creating a vlog so that you look like you're a high flyer and you're traveling. Try to get, because we as individuals can also get more from that. So think about what you also can get from it, because there's so much richness and beauty that we can get from traveling. Make some friends, have some friends that live all over the world and build some connections with people, which is wonderful again for educating ourselves and building those bonds with people who are different to us. So yeah, that's my key takeaway, that we've got to do that more. It's even challenged me as well, to really think about where we're going and why we're going and how can we give back to that place while we're there. Like I said, even if it's just in respecting the people and their local area. And then lastly, I'd say maybe don't go to Miami because everyone's going there. I think it's the city in the US that has the most tourists, I think, or that attracts the most tourists.
It attracts the most,
Yes.
one of them. I think it's one of the cities that attracts the most tourists. I think New York is up there and LA's up there, but I think it is one of the ones that attracts the most tourists.
And I can imagine it's not just tourists from the US, it's international as well. So maybe think of other places you could go. Like, I'm always looking for places off the beaten track. So I'm sure
that no one goes to, right?
Yeah. So I'm sure there's loads of other cities in the US that are beautiful that just aren't the most known. So do that more. Go to those places more.
100%. I think overall, you know, what this chat has brought it down to is that we as people need to broaden our horizons.
Yeah.
We need to push ourselves to come out of what we know and who we are. And the reality is, you know, the world is becoming more and more connected. So this was like in 98 and Will Smith was talking about Miami, and it was probably this like far away place that we may never touch. But now the world is almost seeming smaller. We're much more connected. We can visit places much more easily. So, you know, we don't want to be the types of people that, like you say, Lou, are going to be ruining other cultures and ruining people's homes. Like, we wouldn't want people coming into our gaff, you know, ruining our home.
Exactly.
So if we're going to be, like I say, global citizens, if we're going to be people who genuinely want to broaden our horizons, be better, then, you know, we really need to just think about, like you say, why we travel. And I think ultimately as well, like, research, read. Like, you know, I know social media's there and it shows pictures, but there's no harm in reading. Remember back in the day, you went and got Lonely Planet. You know, you used to get Lonely Planet, top 10 of so and so. Listen, no, come on, I've still got all of them. Let's go back to that. Let's go for top 10. Let's start reading Lonely Planet and really understanding what other countries and other cultures is about before we go there. Let's be informed, you know, let's be informed global citizens of the world.
Yes.
And let's not just be ratchet consumers.
Yeah.
That's where I would end it. Cool. All right then. Well, thanks so much, guys, for listening to this episode. Catch you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Lyrically Speaking podcast. We're so grateful for all of you, our listeners. We don't want this episode to be the end of us connecting. So tell us what your key takeaways were. They're probably different to ours, so we'd love to hear them. You can tweet us with your takeaways or leave them as a comment on our social media post or our YouTube video for this episode. We are at Lyrically Speaking Podcast across all platforms, including Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, except X, where you can find us as at Lyrically Pod. You can find Louise on Twitter and Instagram as at Carlo Coaching, that's Carlo with a K, and me, Omar, as at Omar.Bam.